While everybody's looking over here, there's something else going on over here. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit today about geopolitical news and just some current events that are happening. A lot of developing stories, a lot of things have happened behind the scenes, and it is significant. Everybody is in their own bubble. Everybody wants to hear the news that they want to hear. They want to look at the entertainment that they want to look at. But you've got to realize, and I've talked about this since last year with China, with Russia, I've talked about Taiwan, I've talked about many things, but these are all pieces of a bigger puzzle. Now, things are happening in many layers. I've said before, you cannot tell the world everything, all the detail, right? Recently, President Xi Jinping went to meet President Putin in Russia. It's crazy because it's his first visit since his re-inauguration. And let me tell you, they're not going to publish everything that they talked about. There are things that they talked about behind closed doors that the reports, the news media, all those guys, they're not going to tell you what that is. I've talked about before how there are multiple power struggles that are happening right now. You have, yes, the countries in totality, but just like the US, if you look at the US, there are different groups, right? Different factions. If you want to say left and right, if you want to talk about Republican, Democrat, there are different things that are happening. You have people, if you again, going back to the global elite, the Illuminati, the powerful Freemason, whatever term you want to put in there, for which the invisible hand that wants to control and commandeer, puppeteer the politicians, the groups, whoever they can buy out, they can blackmail, whatever that is. You can talk about those things. And if that's thick, if that warfare is thick in the US, you can imagine it's very thick in other places. China in totality is not just all CCP. We know about communism, we know about all that, but there are good people in China as well. They're just pressured. They have external forces, externalities that are keeping them from doing the right thing. And so they're a product of society, of the pressure around them. And so you have those things, and especially in Russia as well. You have many of these kind of things going on. So that it's a big chessboard. And so I've said before, and many others have agreed with me, that Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping, they're all fighting a common enemy, which is this deep state, this power thing for such a long time. Trump had to go behind the scenes and he had to be out of the limelight. But one of the biggest things that they're trying to take down is this banking elite, right? The Federal Reserve, you have the IMF, you have the WEF, you have all these guys, right? From the Rockefellers of the world, all the families, they're trying to take these guys down. And at the surface, it doesn't look like they're good guys. You look at China, you look at these guys, you're going to be like, oh, and you have a sour taste in your mouth. But they have a common enemy, right? It's a lesser of two evils. Yes, we know certain things about these countries and even the US and all that, but they're trying to fight a common enemy. So that's what you are seeing happen just at big picture. But in the midst of that, there's other things that are going on. So Russia kicking off the special military operation in Ukraine to clean things out. I've talked about watch Taiwan. Watch what's going to happen with Taiwan. You have recently, right, the U.S. building more bases or planning to build more bases in the North Philippines. And then you have recently China getting a large contract to rebuild a naval port base in Honiara in the Solomon Islands. And so this is a huge sort of outpost for them. And so if they get this contract, or they did, and if they build, let's say, a military base there, that's a big expansion. And then you have all these people traveling everywhere. A previous president of Taiwan, President Ma, is planning to, or I believe maybe he already did, visit China for the first time like ever, right? So the Taiwanese presidents, they don't just visit mainland China. And then you have the Taiwanese president planning to travel to the US, I think March 29th, next week, right? And so you have all these guys traveling, all these presidents traveling anywhere. They're not, let me tell you, they're not there to just have breakfast, just have a nice chat and then go. There's bigger issues going on, and it's not something that you can just report to the public. The news media, they can't hear these types of things because the power struggles that be, it's bigger than the fact that you're concealing something from the public so that for the sake of the objective, for the mission, whatever you want to call it, to take down and make sure that the power is set up for the future, for the people, whatever that is, those things are in play. And I've talked about the fiat currency, the new BRICS nations, right? The BRICS nations, Saudi Arabia is trying to be in it as well. And that's a whole nother story with OPEC Plus and just this oil stuff. But they're trying to be this next reserve currency. I've talked about that last year. It's developing as we speak. They want to get off the US dollar as the petrol reserve for the world. And so they're going to achieve this in due time because they're all Brazil, South Africa, these guys are all just desiring for that. They don't want anything else anymore to do with the US dollar. And then you have all this debacle, right? Recently, the EU, they had an embargo, a ban on diesel from Russia. And guess what? A little bit later, maybe even days later, Saudi Arabia, it's reported here that they bought 2.5 million barrels of diesel from Russia in 10 days. It's unprecedented, right? They don't do this, right? And you look at the profitability, the business sense of that, it doesn't make any sense unless they're getting such a discount and there's something else going on behind the scenes, which if it were my guess, possibly they could be reselling this back to the EU and using Saudi Arabia as a proxy. So this is just speculation. I'm not saying it's true, but there are different things going on here, right? And Russia selling, the fact that the EU has banned and has an embargo on this doesn't mean Russia is down the tubes. They're selling this to other people. Tunisia, Turkey, I believe, South America, and then of course, as I mentioned, Saudi Arabia. These guys, they're getting rich off this diesel, and there's going to be a market for that. And so there's a lot of power struggle here going on, but NATO, the US, all these guys, they're going down very soon, right? Unless people come in, good guys come in, patriots, white hats, whatever you want to call it, they come in and they start doing things for the benefit of the people and not for the rich and the global elite. And so this is the bigger picture battle happening right now. And yes, underneath that, after you fight the common enemy, then you go on and you have other scuffles and things like that. But you are seeing things play out right now. Continue watching Taiwan. Continue watching what's happening with other countries, their movements, their alliances, and then you're going to continue to see this oil, this gas war, and all this stuff that's going to happen between the Middle East and then Russia and US and all that. And so watch for the big things to come down. You're going to see things shift and change, but it's significant because we're in a time now for which there's a big global war and everybody else is sleeping. They're looking this way, something else is happening over here. And even if you're trying to get the full picture, you're not going to be able to get it because this is how thick the war is. There are people behind the scenes. They don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to know the struggle and this jousting, this wrestling that's going on and how we're at a precipice. It's a good time. I've said it's a good time because it's dismantling this, decades, centuries, year-old power struggle that's happened in just right in front of us in broad daylight, but people don't realize it. The inflation, this fiat currency, this made-up stuff, all making people, or at least the rich, richer. And so all of this is being dismantled. You're going to see, I've said before, you're going to see a gold-backed or a precious metal-backed currency, and this is going to be hopefully the norm across the world. First, it's going to come to the BRICS because they're obviously hoarding gold and doing things for the sake of their nation, for the sake of their future, and holding their currency strong. And then everybody else is either going to follow suit or you're going to see something else happen. And then that's why you have this power struggle with the central bank digital currency, as well as any other crypto related stuff, anything that's decentralized. You're going to see that, be ready for it. But right now, research, go do a little bit of digging on just this geopolitical, countrywide sort of jousting, different things that are happening. Everybody's sleeping. Everybody is being fed some kind of a narrative, and it's very difficult, very confusing to cipher and discern through that. And so I'm just saying, be alert, be cautious in this hour, because as Christians, we have to be praying. We have to be praying the right way. We have to be praying the will of God. There are things that people are praying for, and it's not coming to pass. It's not being answered because that's not the will of God, because people are misinformed and the input to their news is not coming from a good, clean, reputable source. And so this is why right now you have to be alert. You have to make sure that you're in prayer, and you have to make sure that you're asking the Lord for discernment, and be very careful. I've said, take off your Western hat, take off your national hat, whatever bias you have, take off that hat and just try to see it at multiple layers, right? Don't summarize an entire country as just being bad or good or evil. The same happens with the US. There are different facets and sects and groups that are operating and struggling within China, within Russia, within other countries. And at the surface level, you're seeing certain things, but behind the scenes, there's more than meets the eye. So just wanted to give you guys just this heads up. More news, a lot of things happening. And as more newsworthy things come up, I will try to see if I can keep you guys updated, but there's a lot going on right now. But you have to be ready. Get ready. Big things are coming. It's a good time. Love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.